Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. This is one I previewed. This is going to be an interesting one. It's a 2-for-1. It's a bunch of parts from a reel that has a broken reel seat, but from what I can tell, very nice smooth gearing. And then we have a reel that's complete for the most part. Looks like we started some assembly on it, but it's got a wind, kind of a grinding. So I've been asked to make 2 reels out of one. I'm going to try and get this handle in here so you can hear it. So this is a Rough Rider. The other one seems to be smooth, but the other one has a broken reel foot. The gearing seems good, and I got a whole bag of parts here that I think have come off of, well, 2 reels. Some of the back here is missing, and obviously most of the guts of this one is missing. So we're going to do what we can. This video may be choppy. I may have to break and stop it and start and do some things like that over time, but we'll try and show you how to go about doing this. And one of the things, of course, is to get that schematic. And this one, I know it's available on a couple of different places, but if you're fortunate enough, this one came in the box. It'll show you the exploded view of what we're looking at here. And if we get stumped along the way, it's a great reference point in terms of how to set that rear drag up, how to set the trip levers up, where the springs belong, and things like that. So let's get started. And I think the first thing I'm going to do here is open this up, because this is pretty much got, from what I can tell, it's working, but it's just working rough. So I want to open this up, and I want to see what we got in here, and then see what we can do to swap these out. So we're going to take the spool off first. Right now I don't have a glove on my hand because I don't anticipate there being much of anything inside here. If it gets to be ugly with some greases and that, we'll go ahead and put that together. I have a parts tray. Now actually I'm going to use 2 parts trays because I'm going to use one for the original reel. Now I'll use another one for the parts, and that way I won't get them confused. This has kind of a slammer drag system underneath it where it's set up for minimizing the salt spray and the like. And then we have the axle shaft that's a solid shaft, so the balance of that has to be removed from underneath. This was set up for a right-hand crank, so I'm going to go ahead and take the handle out. Now there's only one handle in this bag. I didn't see the other handle, so we'll have to go and kind of judge accordingly. So let's move over then, and we'll take some of the side plate screws out. First one I like to take out is this one, which is the trip mechanism for the free spool for the bait runner. And I think this one is just going to be a case where it gets pried off of the stud, like that. And then we should be able to push that out of the way on the other one. And then we just mark those parts, put them in your parts tray. A good thing to do with this, even though you have the schematic, is take pictures. It's kind of what I'm doing here, and those pictures will become very helpful in reassembling this thing. If I get stuck, I'll be able to look where those pieces came from. Alright, next up then, looks like we have 3 side plate screws here. Looks like they can be either Phillips head or a traditional flat bladed screwdriver. This is that machine tool thing that's got the circle center in it, so I'm going to use a flat blade that does go straight through. There's 3 of them as far as I can tell, and it helps to have a series of screwdrivers at your hand or nearby, because in this case the blade was the right blade on the other one, but the case opening was not, so we had to go ahead and work with that. This should allow me to take the case off. Let's take the screws out. Those case screws are all the same size. I always try to look for that. And I'm going to put those in another section of this parts tray here. Now, so there's a little clip up top here that you have to knock off to get that piece out. So let's go ahead and do that. Just be careful with that clip. It's an E clip or a C clip. You don't want to lose it. In this case, I guess I'm fortunate I have two pieces here. That's the clip I'm referring to. It's going to go into my parts tray as well. Now I should be able to pull up on that. Now we can get to that the nut that holds the rotor. This is a reverse threaded one, so you turn it clockwise to remove that. This pin will also come out. Again, it's a good place to take pictures because you wind up with a lot of parts in your tray, and then when you're going to put them back, sometimes you can get easily stuck. Rotor's coming off to the side. We did have that one more side plate screw here, so let's go ahead and take care of that. And I'm not sure what the problem is here with this. I'm not sure if we have a problem with the pinion gear or the main gear, so I suspect what we want to do is we want to remove both. This should come off now. A crack in the plate here where we can start. They hit another one over here. Alright, let's get that off. Now it'll come off. So we had three in the face, and then we had one front, one back. They're all the same size again. So we'll just going to keep them off to the corner of my tray there. Now we should be able to get that off. Give a little resistance here from that override. Okay, so we have a lot going on here. We have a spring that's off here. That we know where that's going to go. That's going to go in the hole up here. And we'll just set about swapping out these gears. You can see that there's a lot of wear on the spool gear, or the Crosswind gear here versus this one. We don't know the condition of the one up top, but I think that's exactly what we're being asked to do here, is just get this cleaned up and restored. So this is a good place to take a picture, just so that you can understand the inside of it. This is the piece that's going to come through. It's holding the entire assembly for this side here. That's going to go here. And then we have a hole right here is where that spring tag is going to go. So just a good note as to where that stuff is prior to reinstalling. We'll also note that there's a spring loop on this one here. You can see that one floating free. And that spring loop is going to go on this post here. So just take the pictures at that point. And then this little guy popped out. And this is where it's good to have a side-by-side companion. You can see that this one belongs as a tensioner behind that override for the gear. Alright, we're going to stop at this point. We're going to be stopping and starting quite a bit here, just to take our time, and we won't miss any steps. We just want to make certain that as we do this, we get it correct. So we took a deep breath, we took a look, we know that we have the one that we want to replace the pieces. We have the old one, and this is the gear side, which we're leaving intact for now until it becomes our turn to set that up again. So let's just start again. We're going to take the collar off because we want to replace all of the gearing structure in here. We know this one's running smooth and that one's running rough. Or this one's running rough, that one's running smooth. I got it backwards already, see? So let's take the collar off here so that we can get the pinion gear assembly out. I noticed that these pieces are in that bag there as well. I also noticed that the anti-reverse clutch was in pieces, and that's always a hard one to work with. And if you don't have to remove the shells of the anti-reverse, you shouldn't. Alright, so the top comes off, and then this whole section should pull out now. and we just shot a spring. And here's your roller bearings, and that was what I was trying to avoid. We'll get that spring in a moment. I just heard it land behind me. So whenever you're doing these roller bearings, the key on this is to hold them as straight as you can, nestle them into the pieces, and sometimes, just trying to find my needle nose pliers, sometimes the needle nose plier is best, and oftentimes putting a little bit of real grease on here will hold them in place. So if you find yourself in that situation, try those tips. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to grab my brush with the grease on it. I'm just going to put a little grease in. The grease will act as a glue. Particularly if you have it on a slant like this and it starts rolling around. That's always a good way to keep that stuff in there, and they should be greased anyway, so just trying to work my way around here. That's the problem you have, is you start getting 180. If you didn't use the glue, it'll start coming out the other side. The grease has glue. Okay, so all of those are back in, being held. Now there's a set pattern here for this lock. You can see how it locks there. Those teeth are not even, so you want to just transfer that. You're going to need these two prongs here need to be with this adjuster level. So I have those two locks, and then it has to be inverted because we were looking at it upside down. And now that's set again. That's why we took a deep breath before. So we have a couple of things going on here. So let's take the rest of this out. This is the pinion gear we're going to replace, or use as the replacement. It looks nice and clean. That's probably why it's performing nicely. We wanted to take that out. Now we're going to refer to the schematic, because the schematic tells us that that metal piece belongs next. It's a little washer for the bearing. Then we can put the pinion gear in. You don't have to put grease on this portion of it, but you can. Into the collar for the anti-reverse. And then on the top side of this, I'll hold everything here. On the top side of this we have a bearing. I'm just going to put oil on that bearing here. And then we're going to transfer that to the opposing case. get that spring on in a moment. Now, I'm going to lay this assembly down for a moment. Just to hold everything in place. I want to get these old parts off. There's no sense putting the one onto the other. Alright, to remove the axle then, there's one in my parts tray. To remove the axle then, we have this clip. It's holding it on. You need to work that clip off. There you go. So you can see how that works its way out. It's a little clip. And I'll leave that right there. I'll pull the axle shaft out. And now I'm putting these into what I'll call a waste bucket for a moment, because these are the bad parts. We're assuming somewhere in there it's the bad parts. And actually I'm seeing the damage right now. The damage is on the little cross drive gear here. So we want to take this piece off as well. And this little wheel, gear, it's got some damage on it. I don't know if you can see it on the camera very well, but these teeth are kind of bashed in, and that's what's causing the grind in this particular reel. Just put that into the case. I'm going to grab our cotton swab. I want to make sure this gets real good and cleaned, because that's what the grind was, and that's what the problem was in the reel, for sure. Here's another one here. Alright, that's nice and clean now. Okay, it's a good time to take a break again, and when we come back we'll take these pieces off the same way we just did, and we'll transfer them over to this case. Okay, while I was on break I was able to locate that little spring. I saw it didn't shoot far, but it did shoot. But that's the spring that's going to connect our override lever, so that's going into this parts tray. And now we're on a one-for-one replacement essentially. We want to take the main gear out and stack that right here. We're going to do the same thing we just did with the other sections of the gear. We're going to try and get this little clip off here. We know that the razor knife kind of worked good the last time, so let's try that again. It works better this time, doesn't it? I'll lay that down. We're doing a direct parts swap here. The axle shaft, crosswind block, crosswind gear, tie down, and the gear that's going to make everything much better. And if you just compare this gear to this gear, you'll see the wear differences on the two. Alright, time to go put them into the whole case. It's whole. A little bit of grease on this. Probably should put the glove on now that I'm working with the greases. This is why I always say check the teeth on the gears. It's easy to overlook, just assuming that they're all good, and in this case that would have led to a lot of trouble. Okay, first gear is in then. Here's our tie down. There's a stud on the back of this one that goes into the gear. Just like that. And it rides over a holder. And we tie down the holder like that. Next up then is the Crosswind gear. Again, check all those teeth. Make sure it's clean, which it is. You want to get grease on a couple of places. You want to get grease behind. You want to get a little bit in the channel here where the screw is going to have it spin. You want to get it on the teeth. And you want to get it on the face. It's a complete greasing of that piece because it plays with a lot of different parts there. And we can use this screw here. Okay. This case, for the most part, I'm done with now. We'll just leave it off to the side. Next up then is to grab the crosswind block, make sure it's clean in the back, and re-grease that. Very good greasing on that. Then you want to look for the lip here. There's a little lip, you know, that's where the clip goes. So you want to make sure that that lip is on the left-hand side. That's where we found it. Clean off your axle shaft. I'm using some steel wool here. It's pretty clean. You can bring that in now. Or actually, we can install. Let's go ahead and install the other piece. So if we did this right now, we're looking to line this up with the stud here. So we're going into the case this way. Okay, so after aligning it a little bit, we got it to work. So we're nested in. In this case, you have that notch. This is riding this way. You have that notch. We showed you how to align the bottom piece of the bearing. That notch is to accommodate the override switch. And that override switch has that little clip in it there. So we're riding okay now. We should be in the off position. To test this, I don't have the spring on there yet. To test this, push the... Oh, we go in the other direction, I believe. Yeah, that should be it. Then, oh, back the other way. Then if you push this over where the spring is going to hold it, you will see that we're engaging now and you have that instant anti-reverse. So, next thing to do then is to put that little spring on. I did find it. And that little spring hooks into the eye of this. We need a good set of glasses, I guess. And over the post here, I'm trying not to shoot it again. These are always fun pieces of the bait runners. Alright, so that spring is installed now. So in that mode we should have, let me pull it out again, darn it. There we go. See, all right. We have an instant anti-reverse. So there you go. So that cap can go back on now. I'll hold this assembly down. And there's a little washer that runs in here, and there's a stud over here. So you want to make sure that you get the washer and the stud on. That will align the 3 pieces here. I'm going to take the 3 screws and get those back on. And that'll tie down that assembly. I won't have to sit on pins and needles here about things flying or dropping out of its place as we go to do the rest of this work here. So we've replaced the damaged gear below. Now we can work our way back in terms of putting the other pieces in. So this is the old assembly. We're going to assume that something on there is probably bad as well. So this gear on the back of the main drive drives that little gear which was chewed up there. Well, actually, I was driven by the Crosswind Gear, but I'm just checking the other one for damage as well. Not quite sure what happened in there, but something happened in there. Alright, this gear appears to be in good condition. I'm just checking the teeth now. If it is a little disorganized and disheveled, that's the way my mind is working today in terms of trying to make all of this whole, trying to keep track of everything with the 2 open reels here. So I'm just going to grab a brush and get the old grease out of this. Checking the main gear teeth while I'm at it. Grab my grease brush then. I'm just going to add grease to those teeth. And grease to the back as well. Now I can install that in here. And we have a bearing there that can use some oil, so let's go ahead and put the oil on that bearing. Now we can slide our main shaft through. And you can put a little bit of grease on the shaft. Don't put a lot on, it'll only get trapped in the pinion gear here. Let's go ahead and load that up. You need to mesh this through to the drag system below, and you have to make sure that the 2 grooves on that shaft are on each side of that. Then you can grab your collar, slide that in. There you go. And we should be able to see everything spin now. And now it's a matter of just transferring over the trip lever assembly and then going back up top and installing the rest of the rotor and the main gear and the like. And I'm going to prefer to transfer the assembly over first, because when you go up top, if you have that rotor, it becomes less balanced. And it goes into the old tray of this before I lose it. Goes as the bearing shield here. Alright, so now we have our trip lever assembly. Let's see how easy or not easy this comes out. It comes out in one piece, which is always fortunate. This is going to go into the hole here. I've got to flip that spring. That way. Put a little bit of grease on there if you like. Alright, so this tag end is going in this hole here. The spring end is going on the post here. This is going into here, and that's going to lie on top of the main gear. So let's see how we can do this now, see if we have any luck here. Got a lot of things going on with bait feeders. thinking the first thing we want to do, we can get this off. Let's take that back out, and let's put that spring in this way. Okay, that's the way that the spring sets there. I think we can probably do the same here with this one. Trying to get that spring back in the right orientation. I want to make sure I have this post up properly. There we go. That's the post up. I have to turn it a little bit. Now we'll grab this, hook that over the other terminal. Like that. Now we should be able to pull back on this as we install the main gear, because that belongs on the other side of it. Just like that. Need to rotate off of that. So that's our anti-reverse or bait feeder trip mechanism, and you can put a little bit of grease on there as well. Now we want to do a case, so we have a side case here, and I didn't see the side case for this one. Up there it is. We have the side case here, and everything looks fine on that. So we're just going to go ahead, I'm going to push this in. And this here should hold this mechanism. Okay, so let's pick this up again, and I apologize if this seems choppy or chopped up or whatever. We're doing a lot of different things today, and just actually stopped to go fishing for a little bit. We have some back bays around us where you get the juvenile bluefish, so we decided we would just take an afternoon break here and go see if we couldn't catch a few, which we did, and so I'm back. So this was an interesting project for sure. Now I'm going to be putting the side plate screws back in, and I alternate. I like to make sure that we don't have tension on it, so I'm going to go top to bottom, side to side kind of a thing. So come back up here, get the one that's hiding behind the rotor there. So overall, this is a nice solid reel. I'm not quite sure why that one gear there got kind of banged up. But it happens. It happens. Something could have got inside, a piece could have broken off, something else could have happened there. And we're almost to the point where we can have our moment of truth. I mean, everything that I've done so far, kind of based on what I know, seems to say that we've done okay. That doesn't always guarantee everything, but keep our fingers crossed. One more side plate screw, and we'll go ahead and put the trip lever back on for the bait feeder mode. Now, one thing we didn't address here was the bottom. That was intact, and I'm assuming that was not the problem on this reel. so we just kind of left that alone. Alright, so we're solid set here. Next up would be this. This has got that little flex in it, so it grabs the one side, the cap end. Then the other side slips over the post, and we should have the last of the screws here. That should be good in that regard. Now we come up top for our, there we go, put the rotor on next. Grab that rotor nut. Now remember when we took that rotor nut off that it was contra, so we're going to do a counterclockwise rotation to seat this one. Be good with that. Spinning nicely. I think Stan will be happy with that. Alright, next up then was this little carrier. Sat on the pin. Let's get the pin out of the parts tray. That's another reason why it's good to make sure that you do that. And this one you have to keep in a T shape because it doesn't have a lot of play over here in terms of mating up. That's on. The spool spacer is on. We have that little C-clip now, which goes to the top. Always tenuous at best. And I can usually get that with a needle nose pliers. Already had one spring shoot today, let's not try to do two, right? Spool next. Spool next, and then a moment of truth, right? Alright, we've got the spool set. Bring this around. Need a handle. I put the handle back in the bag for safekeeping. I did. This handle was set up on the right side, so let's go ahead and see if we can't put that back together. Okay. Okay, then we've come to the moment of truth. Now I've just installed the bump guard and put the spool back on. This was set up for a right-handed drive, so let's give it a test. There you go, it's working that way. How about the bait feeder mode? Bait feeder mode with the spool, tighten the drag, tighter. Okay, there's still a mild little annoyance of a grind, but you know, I'm taking two old reels, putting it back together and trying to make the best of both, and I think we probably did that. So mission accomplished, and I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've learned something from it. It's quite an effort to play around with bait feeders. There's good reason why most bait shops, repair places don't. They're complicated, and there's a lot of geometry going on inside them, but I hope for Stan's sake that this has worked to what he was hoping for, and hope he can get it back out there fishing again. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. If you liked the video, please indicate that. If you want to see more, please subscribe. If you have a reel that needs to be worked on and you don't want to work on it yourself, then please contact me with the information that follows on the business card, preferably by email, and I'll do my best to get in touch with you and provide you with that repair information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.